I wasn't prepared for what happened when I started playing Anno 117. Because the moment I began shaping my first settlement, I realized I was having more fun building and exploring a Roman city in this strategy game than exploring cities in the last 8 years of Assassin's Creed, and that's insane. And real quick, thanks to Ubisoft for giving me access to the game so I could dive deep into this. Now, you might say, Seal, what do these two games even have in common besides being published by Ubisoft? And you're absolutely right to think that, but hear me out. Anno 117 isn't an action game. It's not about parkour, stealth, or blending into crowds. You're planning roads, rotating buildings, and managing your city. It is at its core a city building strategy title. And yet, somehow this game lets you build cities that feel more alive, denser, and more human than the cities in a franchise literally built on the fantasy of exploring historical settings. A franchise created by some of the most talented teams in the industry. Then again, you might be thinking, come on, Seal, quit being silly and tell us the connection already. Well, dear viewer, the answer is simple. Both games are obsessed with history, but one studies how a city actually works in its era and the other allows you to walk through it and shows the major events that happened there. Or simply put, Anno 117 makes you build them and AC lets you fully explore them. However, when you switch perspectives in Anno using its neat little feature and wander through the city you just created, you start noticing things AC hasn't nailed in years. And that's when I realized Anno 117 isn't just a great city builder. It's a reminder of what Assassin's Creed used to understand and what it quietly lost along the way. Anno 117 is created based on a real historical moment, the Roman Empire at its height in 117 AD, the absolute peak of Rome's power and territorial reach. So the politics, the provinces, the tension between Roman rule and Celtic identity, everything sits on a solid historical foundation. But 117 is not pretending to be a documentary. The characters, the Emperor drama, the main storyline, and even the difficulty of controlling the unconquered northern Celtic tribes are fictionalized to keep the campaign engaging. Even the sensitive parts of Roman society, like the massive institution of slavery, is not featured directly. Instead, the game focuses on the liberty class, the freed slaves. This allows it to acknowledge the movement and impact of the unfreed population on Roman society without making slavery a central controversial mechanic. So the game is set in a specific era, perhaps one of the most well-known in history, but the devs also made it flexible enough to keep the gameplay fun and engaging while avoiding controversy. This is where we see the similarities to Assassin's Creed. Like Anno 117, AC also heavily relies on history to tell its stories, but sometimes bends the facts. Both games use the historical period as a backdrop to push their narratives forward, explore the past in unique ways, and build their worlds around these interpretations. But the difference is that before the RPG era, cities were the soul of Assassin's Creed. Damascus, Florence, and Venice each had distinct personalities. Florence felt like stepping into one of Da Vinci's paintings, and Paris genuinely felt like a living city, dense and vertical, overflowing with NPCs, a place where parkour felt essential. Then AC went full RPG and cities turned into something else. Origins wasn't that bad, but none of its cities felt as great as the older games. Odyssey gave us wide landscapes dotted with settlements, but they all started to blend together and lacked concentration or intention. Especially large cities like Athens felt way too empty and the streets were way too wide. So not only did it not feel alive, but it wasn't suitable for parkour either. It was just, large. Then Valhalla and Shadows featured large villages disguised as cities. They were extremely empty and in Valhalla's case, extremely small. That's why I called them villages disguised as cities. Although to be fair, Mirage came close to perfection, closer than anything since Unity, but even Baghdad for all its beauty never reached that essential NPC density we saw in a game like Unity back in 2014. It's like the series forgot that a city isn't necessarily defined by how wide it is, but it's also defined by its internal logic and how believable it feels. The pressure points, the districts, the verticality, and the crowd density are all important. Anno understands that because it pushes you to build cities with human needs in mind. But unfortunately, AC hasn't embraced that properly in years because it's been prioritizing everything except the city. Now, let's focus on our strategy game for a minute. In Anno, you start with nothing. Dirt roads, a lumber yard, a handful of farmers, and from there, you begin making actual decisions. How to structure neighborhoods, how to feed your people, where specialized buildings should go, and so on. Meaning, without forcing it, you create a city that feels like a city. Then, you can watch people go to work, travel, and interact. And if you want, you can drop into first or third person and walk through the place yourself. Well, it doesn't look great visually, cause that's not what the game was built for, but the feeling is amazing. You feel like you're discovering something new even though you built it. And seeing everything up close opens your mind in ways you don't expect. So basically, it's immersive as hell. Now this is where everything clicks. The city reacts to everything you do. It's constantly throwing problems at you, and you have to stay on your feet to solve them. For instance, the workers could go on strike, causing a shortage of supplies, which could result in some of the productions missing the materials they need to function, ultimately damaging your production chain. So you have to quickly figure out the problem and fix it. Or it could happen in another form. Something as simple as fire could break out, and if you don't have any visuals nearby, it could easily destroy your city, leaving you in huge debt. And there are many more instances like these. So the micromanagement on a building-to-building level starts to feel like the city is directly talking to you, demanding adjustments and better planning. And when you solve those problems, the city rewards you by settling back into balance and your empire's growth. This feedback loop is fun, stressful, and completely addictive. And that's without even mentioning raising armies, diplomacy, trade routes, or the tech tree. Just the city alone carries the whole experience. Anno 117 makes the city feel alive by giving it purpose. Every street has a function, every building has a role, every district is a part of an economic conversation. A believable city is one designed with intention, not just a massive backdrop stretched across a map. Anno nails that without needing parkour routes or cinematic animations. You know, I really didn't expect to like Anno 117 this much, and I definitely didn't expect it to make me rethink an entirely different franchise. When Assassin's Creed became a series about exploring entire nations, it sacrificed the magic of dense, intentional cities. Not because the new cities are literally small, though they kind of are, but because they don't have stacks, layers, clusters, economic pockets, geographic personality. Those older AC cities felt alive because the economic logic, the social logic, the spatial logic was baked into their design. In Anno, you handle all of that manual. In classic AC, the game handled it for you. But modern AC just doesn't. Modern Ubisoft worlds, especially in Assassin's Creed, are massive and gorgeous, but the cities feel like details in a bigger picture instead of the picture itself. A city should be the world in a series like Assassin's Creed. Anno can't forget that, because the city is the gameplay, and by doing its own thing, it unintentionally exposes the philosophical problem with modern AC. And look, this isn't about making AC play like a city builder, of course not. It's about dedicating more time to crafting a believable city that not only feels real, but also becomes the perfect playground for parkour. Take the Seal City I built in 117. I designed it with parkour in mind, placing pillars, platforms, and buildings as close as possible with as much vertical and horizontal variety as I could, all so that this imaginary parkour line in my head feels fluid and continuous. And if I can do it in a game that has nothing to do with parkour, then Assassin's Creed can absolutely do it too. Not just in something smaller like Mirage, but even in the big RPG entries. So, what's the conclusion here? You see, when playing Anno 117, I started imagining a modern Assassin's Creed game featuring multiple cities where every city feels like the ones I can build in Anno, where districts have an actual purpose, crowds overwhelm you, and verticality actually matters, where maps are deep, where a city isn't a point of interest but the entire experience, a place you can climb, sneak through, and lose yourself in. You know, it's not a genre issue, by the way. It's not about RPG versus action-adventure. It's about design philosophy. Unity showed AC could do it with the crowd density. Mirage showed AC still remembers how to design deep cities to some extent. And Anno 117 shows the current-gen hardware is more than capable of handling complex situations. If Ubisoft brings Assassin's Creed to ancient Rome or even gives us that Origins sequel we never got, I hope they take this route. A city that's dense and bustling, built for parkour and alive in the way the ones you create in Anno 117 already feel. Something with weight and personality, something that makes you feel the streets breathing beneath you again, the way those old games used to. That's why I wanted to make this video. Not to review Anno 117, but because it reminded me what a historical city can be on a massive scale. Something beyond what Mirage achieved, beyond what the RPG era forgot. Something Assassin's Creed used to chase and desperately needs again. If you love strategy games, Anno 117 is smoother and more approachable than ever. It plays a lot like Anno 1800, but feels more accessible with smart additions like raising armies, diagonal roads, and managing Celtic and Roman citizens across different maps. There's even a multiplayer mode if you want to test your efficiency against real players. And if you're an Assassin's Creed fan who misses dense intentional cities, this game gives you tools to build them yourself and shows exactly why those worlds used to matter. And now I'm curious to hear your opinion. What do you think AC has forgotten about building great cities that I haven't mentioned? Drop your thoughts below.